Our desire is to see happen here in the United States, happen here in the Bay Area, what you'll hear in a little bit has been happening throughout the world.
Today is the day that God's going to help us to understand how He's at work in the world and how we can be a part of that.
And there were thousands of police officers around us in that base while we discipled each other.
The numbers are so extraordinary, they're so unbelievable, that it's easy just to take them for granted. But God is doing truly extraordinary things.
What does God have in store for each one of us as we think in terms of facilitating church planting movements on a global scale?
Where people have begun to practice what I'm going to share with you, we have seen an incredible increase in church planting. What I mean is stop being culturally Christian and be godly biblical.
I want to continue with these counterintuitives based on how we have traditionally done church planting. Now, I want you to know we are going to get to the point of those of you who are working in traditional church settings to talk about church planting in your context. So don't give up on the process. I've got to set some groundwork before we get there, but we are going to get there and work through that. Now, whether or not you'll be happy with what we say when we get there, that's a different story, but we definitely are going to try to get there for you. Another counterintuitive is paid local leaders kill church planting. Not only do buildings kill church planting, but paid local leaders kill church planting. Everywhere outside money is used to pay leaders, the work will only grow to the capacity of outsiders to provide money. Now, right now, we have 40,000 leaders in India. 40,000. More than that. The going rate is $100 a month for a leader in a local church. What's my monthly budget to support 40,000 leaders? Anybody got the number? $4 million a month. Now, anybody in here have capacity to raise $4 million a month? I've got a job for you, okay? Matter of fact, there's a lot of people who might have a job for you. If you begin paying local leaders from outside funds, church planting and church growth will only grow to your capacity to pay. So if your organization, let's say you're a church and you're putting $100,000 a year into church planting and you're paying $60,000 a year to a church planter in North America to do that church planting, then all you're going to get is that one church, because the other $40,000 is going to go into expenses and other things. You're just not, if you're paying people to be church planters, then you're going to have a hard time making church planting happen. We are firm believers in self-supporting church planters. Matter of fact, it's important that church planters be self-supporting. Church planting is not a full-time job. To pay someone full-time to church plant is a waste of resources. The best church planters are people who are ordinary people. Now, we can highly train those ordinary people, but the best church planters are ordinary people. So don't pay them. Once you turn someone to a vocational church planter, you've caused yourself problems in church planting. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have vocational workers. I do. They're trainers, they're equippers. They spend full time managing the church planting process on a large scale. But that church planter that is on the ground starting churches, even if it's their call, we say, okay, how are you going to get in that community? Well, they need a cobbler. They need a welder. They need a pipe fitter. They need a plumber. What are the needs of the community? Then the outsider can come in, begin establishing, meeting those needs, build the relationships, find the people that are spiritual to meet the issues that are in that community, and you can start churches there. But if you try to start churches from a vocational perspective and with a signboard on a building, that's just saying, please don't come.
Oh, watch out, we're here to convert you. We're here to change your life. We're here to take away all your fun. And that doesn't start churches. Ordinary people doing everyday stuff are the best church planters. Businessmen, workers in business, they're the very best church planters. One of our most effective church planters in India is a bicycle repairman. He sits on the side of the road repairing the thousands and thousands of bicycles that come across his path every week. And when he's got them sitting there, a captured audience replacing their chain or tuning up their spokes or replacing a tube or whatever it might be, he talks about spiritual matters. And if they show interest, he says, well, come back tomorrow and I'll show you where I'm learning this stuff from. And if they show an interest, and he says, can I come to your house and talk to your whole family about it? And he shows an interest, and before you know it, this guy is starting 20, 30 churches a year by himself. And he sits in the dirt on the side of a road, and no one looks twice at him. I mean, you walk by, the only time you see a bicycle repairman is when? When your bicycle's broken. It's like, I don't want the plumber coming to my house until I got a plumbing problem. But when I got a plumbing problem, I want him, and I want him fast. Business is a natural inroad. So, paid local leaders kill church planting. It's the real people doing things because they want to. No personal evangelism so the masses will hear. We do not do personal evangelism. Matter of fact, I challenge you. Show me personal evangelism in the Bible. You're not going to find it. Not the way we train it and teach it in the West. It's just not there. Now, does that mean that I don't believe in personal commitment to Christ? No, that's necessary. That's a biblical element. But how we move a person to personal commitment is not through a formula of you do these things and you become a believer. Jesus said very clearly, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he who does what? The will of my Father. How do you learn the will of the Father? How do you get to that point? Well, we believe it's through Discovery Bible process. And we disciple people to obedience and faith. We don't convert people in order to make them a part of whatever we're doing. So we don't do personal evangelism. No mass evangelism, so the masses will hear. We've already talked about crusades. I've walked that route. It's a waste of money. And I'm sorry if some of you have invested there, but I'm just telling you, go back to the ground it's happened on and look for results. You find litter. That's what you find. And if you find results, it's an exception to the rule. Now, hear me. There's always someone who can point, I started church because of that. That's fine. I'm glad it happened. But what about the other 997 that didn't start churches? So we don't do mass evangelism. We look for the people God has prepared to hear the gospel, and we engage them. And we do lots of things to help find those people, and we work through the things to find those people. Focus training on ordinary people, not professional or vocational Christian workers. I do not run seminaries. I do not run training centers for people who are in the ministry already. Our training is focused on ordinary people to live out their Christian walk every day and to lead while living, not live to lead. And there's a difference. I think you understand that difference. Now, that doesn't negate the calling to being vocational Christian. I'm a vocational worker now, folks. My sole salary comes out of doing what I'm doing right now. I've not always been that, but that's what I am now. There is a place for those in the ministry who are paid. Culture determines that, job determines that, where calling determines that. There is a place for that. But I'm telling you, vocational workers are not the place to invest for church planting. Not at the grassroots level. I'm going to invest in equippers of grassroots level training. That's where I'm going to invest. We do have full-time Christian workers on our teams, but they're equippers, they're trainers. They're the ones who are equipping those who are doing the work. They're not doing the work for them. And that's the primary difference. Expect the hardest places to yield the greatest results. One of the things I get gigged on quite regularly is you say every place is the toughest. Let me tell you, to the people living in any place, their place is the toughest. It always is. They don't know any other place. Their place is the toughest. Their life is the hardest. The problems they're facing are the most difficult to face. And if you compound that by wrong methodology or inadequate methodology, success is always going to be limited. Maybe limited to zero. So one of the things that we try to help people to understand is that in their tough situation, there are ways to meet the needs of people. There are ways to build relationships that allow for spiritual conversation. Notice I did not say religious conversation. I don't care about religion. Matter of fact, if we had time, I'd take you through the Bible passages where God says, I don't care about religion. God doesn't care about our religion. Religion is for the local culture. What God cares about is your obedience. He cares about your spiritual connectedness with Him. And how are you living that out in your relationships to other people? That's what He cares about. He says, I care about justice and I care about righteousness. And that has very little to do with religion. So, regardless of where the hard place is, you can expect results when you begin to meet people at their spiritual need. But you got to find out what that need is. You have to empathize with that need. You have to experience that need in community with them before they believe you care about that need. I can't drive up in a $50,000 Land Rover to a village that doesn't even have water in Africa and expect them to think that I understand their need. It's not going to happen. And I'm going to have very little impact in that context. I might have some impact if I walk 20 miles into it and I'm thirsty and dirty the way there. I might have some impact there, but it'll take me time to learn language and culture. But if I can find someone that will meet me halfway down that 20-mile road, and I can sit down and they're spiritually hungry and I can feed them spiritually and talk about how to meet the spiritual needs in their context, and then I walk back my way and they walk back their way, all of a sudden we can see things start happening. And that's true in Sierra Leone, and it's true in Santa Cruz. Regardless how tough it is, we can make a difference. Small, for-profit projects often yield much higher long-term access and goodwill than charity or free services. Man, I've done the charity, I've done the free services, I've done the relief work, I've done giving away food and blankets, I've done all of that, and next year we do it again and we don't see much happening out of it. But I can go in there and set up a little business. I can do a little micro loan process, or I can set up a company that hires people. I can raise the transaction economic status in the area and watch life begin to evolve around money changing hands multiple times instead of being hoarded. And all of a sudden, I'm welcomed with open arms. And all of a sudden, I get to talk about meaningful things. And all of a sudden, but it wasn't sudden. It took planning, it took resourcing, it took training, it took overcoming obstacles. It took all the things that we do in good business to get us there. And those kind of good business ventures have legs. They stay a long time. And they impact a lot of people. And everywhere we have done business, whether it's at a micro business level or at a small enterprise level or even at a large enterprise level, we see long-term, long-lasting church planting happen because it's self-sustaining. Good business is self-sustaining. It grows, doesn't it? Well, that impacts the resources necessary for church planting. If I've got to constantly go after the donor dollar to get it access into our area, then man, I'm limited. I'm limited by the charity and the goodwill. And there's a lot of charity and goodwill out there, but it's still a limiting factor. But when it's business, and that business is successful, and that business is growing, it gets me into places and in contact with people I would have never been in business with or in contact with. If you want to change the world, you're not going to change it with religion. You're going to change it with biblically obedient people living out their life every day in every context. And it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.